The following podcast is brought to you by the Johners Podcasting Network, found exclusively at WrestlingWithJohners.com.
Welcome to Work the Left Side. I am back again. And this week it is the first part two, or the first time we've had somebody on twice. So welcome back to Craig. Thank you so much for being back, dude.
Thank you very much for having me back. I didn't realise I was the first part two person, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's really kind of you to have me back again. But even after we chatted last time, I think we chatted off air, if you like, for the next sort of 10-15 minutes, and there was just like a ton of other stuff that we could dive into. But that's just the nature of what it is. Like there's I think, you know, even if all the guys, the girls you've had on here and stuff, I think, you know, you could chat to all of them for hours about wrestling, about different, you know, what they've all been through and their experiences, and you'd still never cover everything. So I do appreciate being asked back on again. It's really cool.
No, it's all good, man. Because like you sort of said, it's just, I was literally kicking myself at the end of that. Like at the end of that episode, it all wrapped up. I thought it was a quality episode. You know, we touched on like awesome stuff, and then it was like, they just talking about random stories. It's like, why did I not ask about this? Obviously, global, we'll talk about in a bit, kind of thing. I was like, didn't mention global and all this kind of sort of stuff. And it just felt like a really easy conversation to have as well, which was pretty much why I said there and then, you know, we'll get you back on ASAP kind of thing, just to crack on with it, really. So, right.
Sounds good.
So, I mentioned global. We'll go straight in and talk about Global Force, because I know Mr. Jarrett is basically one of those kind of characters in wrestling that either hate him or you kind of got some sort of respect for him, kind of thing. I don't know. I can only speak for people that I know. I'm not his biggest fan. I think the dude's based on from what I've seen. I've never really been a big mark for him, kind of thing. But some people are. You encountered him in Global. How was it? How was he?
Yeah, he was fine. Like I guess in the reality of the show, I refed his match, but you know, the interaction with him was you know, we had a chat before, we had a chat after. He was really nice to me about what I did and how I did my business. He worked someone I knew very well with Nathan Cruz, so that was, and I spent a lot of time with Nathan over the years I was in wrestling throughout different places, so that was really easy being in there with somebody that I knew really well. But no, I mean, it was that interaction for me in that instant was quite a straightforward one. It was I think what people would describe respectfully as a very Jeff Jarrett match, like Karen on the outside, interruption, low blow, hits the stroke, which is his finish, 1, 2, 3. It's like, you know, that it was. I think that's probably what people want to see. They want to see that, you know, you see it on the telly. You've seen it in WCW. You've seen it in early WWF in the mid sort of 90s. That's the kind of match you want to see. That's why you've come to watch Jeff Jarrett, to see a Jeff Jarrett type of match. So
familiarity.
Yeah, this is it exactly. They don't want to see him doing all these new stuff and it's like, well, that's not Jeff Jarrett. We want to see a Jeff Jarrett match, and
you want to see
yeah, exactly. The sort of the strut and he didn't have the guitar, but that kind of thing. But personally, for me, like it was a very positive and very, very nice experience. That show.
How was the Global Force experience overall? Was it just the one match that you did, or did you referee a few matches? I know we mentioned obviously Mickie James.
Yeah.
Was talking off screen last time.
So I'll tell you how it came about me doing it. So another referee who's now working for NXT UK called Chris Sharp. Me and him now, which is an interesting relationship in its own right, because Chris almost mentored me from afar, and we never met each other. Even to this day, I've never met him in person. But he, we started like DMing, I think mainly on Twitter, and he was like really helpful. And I think we were friends on Facebook, and like everyone in wrestling is kind of like a big. Facebook wasn't just used because I know you as a friend; it was just used because that's how you kind of build your brand and build who you are, and so people know about you and things like that. So it was more for that networking, if you like. So and Chris messaged me saying Global Force obviously coming to England. I say yeah. He goes, have you messaged Double J as a just? I was like no. How would I do that? Like I don't really have him on speed dial. Like how would I go about doing that? And he said his Gmail is in his Twitter bio, and I was like, oh, okay. So I emailed Jeff Jarrett. I just emailed him with like, I was like, hi, I'm Craig. This is what I've done. Obviously, put a bunch of pictures of me reffing relevant top, some imports, some top talent in this country, and was like, well, I've shooted my shot. There, and I actually had a proper, and I probably still have it somewhere on my computer, a professional wrestling CV, not like you do when you go into a job or you want to get a job. I had a proper, I still probably still do have it somewhere, a proper professional wrestling CV, and I sent that, and about 3 to 4 weeks later, I got an email from, and I'm going to butcher his name, so I'm going to use his TNA name. I got an email from Magnus, from Nick Adonis, and he emailed me saying, hi Craig, Jeff has forwarded this to me, and we'd like to book you for our Grimsby show, which was the first GFW show in the country, first one they ever did. They did 2 that on that stint, and then they did 3 more on another occasion, which I was originally booked on, but then was told I wasn't booked on, which was weird. But then they never lasted much longer after that anyway, so I don't know whether that was the beginning of the end for them. I don't really know. That was just my experience. But yeah, that's how it became involved. Nick booked me and said, yeah, come for this time, come for this place. And it's the only show I've only ever worn a suit to. I completely suited up because I was like, you don't know where it could go, how things could if they liked me, it could have rapidly have, I say they liked me, they did like me, but if it took off as much as maybe people at the time maybe thought it might have done, then who's to say where that might have ended up, and there was
you could have been on the tour bus with them around the country kind of thing.
You really don't know. That's why it's good. I always had that philosophy of being kind to everyone, whether they were the timekeeper, a fresh green wrestler, or a fresh ref, whoever. Everyone nice to everyone, then no one can say a bad name about you, etc. And as everything in wrestling, you can say one horrible thing about somebody, and that can turn around and tell 100 people before you know it, you're blacklisted. So but no, so Nick, we emailed and we arranged it, and I showed up in a suit and stuff, and yeah, it was for me a really positive day. I mean, the only sad thing I guess is that the show wasn't recorded, so like there's pictures of everything, but they didn't want to record any of that, which I find odd. I guess now looking back on it from what they were trying to achieve, but like as well as like. We'll talk about the ones that were over, but we had people like Robbie X was on, which was really cool. When Nathan Cruz was on, Rampage was on that show, and then Marty Scurll was on that show. Big Damo? Yeah, Big Damo was on that show, and then Bram, Mickie James, obviously Jeff Jarrett with Karen, Doug Williams. So yeah, Doug and Nick, I forget their TNA name. They were
it's like Team Britain or something, or the United Kingdom or something.
Oh, that's really going to bother me. I've got that wrong. It's something like that. British Invasion.
That's it. Because they had the Welsh dude as well.
Terry. Yes, Terry.
Yeah,
very big. Blonde hair, Jack lad. Yeah. So it was British Invasion versus Marty Scurll, and Rampage was the main event. which was a great tag. But yeah, so that was, and then you look at that, and in fact, the ladies' match was Mickie James versus Nikki Cross. So
Wow.
who's Nikki Storm? Nikki Storm at the time, Nikki Storm. So Nikki Cross. So that was the women's match. Which now, if you turn around and look at that from sort of 5-6 years down the road, it's like, well, you got one half of the women's WWE Tag Team Champions, and someone now that's, in Mickie, who is doing obviously a lot of stuff in NWA and has done stuff in Impact and did go to WWE and have another run in the WWE after GFW sort of didn't really do much. So and I think that one of the nicest things I think I spoke to that day was by two people. One was, and it was actually the husband and wife team, Nick and Mickie. Really, he was really nice. He was like, "We'll try and get you back again when you come back." And when I said goodbye to Mickie, she was super nice. She was like, "Are you joining us down south for the other show?" I said, "I'm not." And she was like, "That's a real shame. You're a great ref. You did a great job. Hopefully you're back again." So, and they were in separate conversations. They weren't like stood next to each other and doing that. So that was two of the nicest sort of bits of feedback I've had, probably that I had during my entire time refereeing. And I think, Nick put NWA back on the map for sure. I think over 1,500 days as world champion.
He's only just dropped it. He dropped it to Trevor Murdoch.
To Trevor Murdoch, and apart from a very brief, I think 2-month period where Cody Rhodes was champion, he, for a 2-time champ, he literally put the NWA on his back and rebuilt that brand. So him and obviously Mickie James is one of the best women's wrestlers and trendsetters of the modern day from everything from 2003, 4 to now. So she's to have that kind of feedback from those guys and that kind of positive interaction was for me at the time was brilliant, because I was like, right, I'm on my way here, and it was good. It was really good.
Yeah, man, that's mental. Like you sort of said, just even having those interactions with the sort of the biggest modern day NWA sort of champion, like you say, the guy who put it back on the map.
But even at the time, he was they decided he was their world champion. He was the GFW world champion at the time, so they'd obviously decided that even then he was someone that they could be like, right, we're going to hook our bandwagon to you. You're going to be our face. Yes, we're going to have people like, obviously Jeff Jarrett's funding it, and he's the guy there. But at the same time, we want you as you're going to be the champion. You're going to be the guy that we're gonna follow. And that was he's been doing pretty much that since, I think, for various different companies.
So I think it started just after he was TNA champion. So yeah, I think he got the TNA world title, and then went with obviously Jeff to Global Force, got that title, that ended, and then pretty much started rocking it out in NWA. It's been a success, but he knows the game. The guy he seems very much like a student of the game. The way that he dresses, the way that he carries the belt on Power and stuff like that. If you ever watched NWA Power, he's very much a student of the game, and that's, I think, so to get praise from him.
Yeah, and you know what? It's not. It's him as just as a performer and just as a person, because it was, this is after the show. We're all in, our trackies and t-shirts at this point. Everyone shows up in suits, but after the show, everyone's more relaxed and chilled out and good show and stuff. And it was, not. I think as well for me, obviously, I was like a bit nervous, because it's like, I've refed some big shows at that point, but for me that was like, I'm refereeing Jeff Jarrett tonight. This guy could, as far regards to internationally, it was the biggest show I've done in this country in regards to like how far, like literally, no pun intended, but like a global kind of outreach to that at that point. Obviously, unfortunately, it didn't really go anywhere, but at that point you don't know. Hence why you have to have that professional attitude to it. But the vibe backstage was really chilled, really relaxed. Everyone was sound. I said Robbie X was on that show, and I got on really well with Robbie. He was great. I refed him a hell of a lot in Hope and sort of various different promotions in the Midlands. So the fact that he was there, I was like, okay, this is fine. Like, Robbie's here, Nathan Cruz is here, Rampage is here. I know these guys really well, so this is fine. Like, I've got a lot of people here that I know really well. Big Damo, I know I refed a fair bit. So he was there. Tidal, Hope as well. He came down to Hope quite a lot as well, but he did do a fair bit of Tidal. which is very true actually. So again, another guy that I was like, okay, I've refed you before. I know what your shtick is, if you like, sort of thing. So, and even Bram actually, I'd ref Bram before. At I think a Hope show actually. I'd ref Bram once before. So it was someone I was like familiar with. So that was cool.
Again,
and then
somebody else who's in NWA now, obviously.
yeah.
Him and Magnus obviously had a storyline in TNA, so they must be, quite close in that sense.
Oh God,
behind the
yeah.
curtain, so.
Yeah, very close, and it just shows like wherever he goes, they go. That's like they're literally like a group within a group that goes to places and builds them up. So, but no, great things. It was a good show.
Always makes me laugh about Bram is I always remember one time seeing him in a Sean Only t-shirt, and it just blew my mind.
In the show, really?
so saw him like advertising a Sean Only t-shirt, and I was like, "What the hell?"
That's pretty. That's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
But him and Pete know each other. Or him and Sean obviously know each other, so it's quite cool. But I didn't know that at the time, and I just saw the Sean Only t-shirt. So then I did some artwork, and I drew him. But I put a Sean Only t-shirt on him at the time just for a laugh.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, Sean was saying that he got a message a few days later because I posted it on Twitter, mentioned him. And he just like some dude's just drawn me in one of your t-shirts. Like, what the fuck? And it's like, yeah, it's like it's just a joke kind of thing. But
that's cool.
It blew my mind. So, obviously, you mentioned Robbie. Whenever I talk to people within like British wrestling, I think I spoke to Nathan Cruz a few weeks ago. Name dropped you. Didn't go into anything, but I just sort of said that I spoke to Craig recently, and his little face lit up. He's very happy to hear your name and after you.
That's cool.
So, but yeah, Robbie X, I think, is one of those guys who I think there's certain wrestlers that are like Dean Allmark that we take for granted, that we kind of don't big up or appreciate enough, kind of thing. They're just next level, but they just make it look so effortless that it's not recognized all the time. I think Robbie X is one of those guys where I think he's one of the best, in the country. And he started off when he was like 14 or something. So you always kind of think he's older than he is as well.
Yeah, do you know what? I had one of my first sort of shows as I was building sort of my own reputation up. I refereed on my first Hope show. It was Tyler Bate, who at the time was like 17, who again is still incredibly young for his ability and how much he's achieved, and Robbie X, who was very similar. I think he was 18, Robbie at the time. So again, very young. First time I'd ever met them both, but they absolutely completely tore the house down. It was the best match on the night. Absolutely fantastic. And every time I ever saw him, every time I worked with him, every time I watched him on a show, on a DVD, everything, he always had a solid standard. I've never seen him have a bad match. So it does baffle me how he's never been picked up by signed basically by a company. He's been booked from big companies and he's had but I've never ever seen him have a bad match, and he takes it seriously. He's always composed. He's a great bloke to have around. I've never heard anyone bitch or moan or complain about him or go, "Oh, Robbie's." It's never ever a bad word. And that's definitely a name that I'm like, okay, surely, if AEW have clearly looked at British guys, Kip Saban, amongst others. Obviously, WWE NXT UK is like the prime place for someone like him to be. How is he not there? Like, I don't know.
It's crazy, isn't it? Because imagine what he could do like on a weekly basis on like a TV show, like you say, like NXT UK kind of thing. The dude would just be smashing out of the park. His matches would be like must-see TV kind of thing.
I don't know at all what the sort of direction of NXT is these days. I don't want to like. So I read this on this website because that's it's just it is what it is. You hear stuff and you whatever. But NXT 2.0, they're looking for fresh. They're looking for different, maybe for older looking stuff or newer, fresh stuff. Someone like a Robbie X could fly in their cruiserweight division, like it's perfect, absolutely perfect for him. And he's I think he'd be great in that role for sure.
I think it definitely fit the NXT UK. I think obviously, again, just speculation from what you read or hear. Obviously, the new NXT 2.0 thing is it's going to be the land of the giants again. They're just looking for young giants now, as opposed to, as I sort of said, no more Adam Coles or Garganos being recruited, kind of thing. Unfortunately, so yeah. But on the UK scene, man, you could have him. He'd be tearing it up on the NXT UK. I just think there's so much potential there. Him against Flash Morgan Webster, guys like that. I'd
Dragunov. I'd pay to see Dragunov versus Robbie X any day.
Yeah,
exactly. That would be fantastic. So, but yeah, like I said, like I refed his name. I refed him a few times in NGW, and they had. I'm trying to remember. They had a certain division, X-Gen. I think X-Gen division NGW had, and he was one of the main guys, and there was like a 10-minute. It was like a 10-minute time limit, and it was just 10 minutes of bang, 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 and yeah, you had to be ready. Not only that, I had to be ready to do them. They were fast matches, and but again, like, and this is years ago now, and he was doing top quality stuff then, and so just like your mug, he was like Buzz Lightyear flying around the ring. So he was fantastic. He was brilliant. So yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely the dude's got nothing but love. You mentioned the NGW there. I don't think we really touched upon. Obviously, a majority of the wrestling stuff that we talked about last time was with Hope, with the Evil Ligero storyline and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
How did you find NGW, man? Because that was always been one of my cornerstones when I first got into British wrestling. I thought there was like 4 promotions that I followed intently, and NGW was one of them, which is why I was so happy to have both Matt and obviously Nathan on the show recently.
Sure. Well, that like almost founding members, for the lack of a better phrase, for those two.
Oh, definitely.
So NGW. So when I first joined Grapple Wrestling, when I sort of first started training, I think within the first week there was like there's an NGW show, in a local town. Like, who wants to go? And obviously I'm just like, yeah, I've never been to a British wrestling show ever at that point. The Grapple show that I was being primed to ring announce on was 3 weeks away, 4 weeks away. So that was going to be my first ever sort of show to do anything on. Let's go and watch this show. And I saw the poster and stuff, and I was like, oh, I know him. That's Doug Williams. So Doug Williams was on the show. So I was like, great. I know someone that's going to be on this show from TNA. Brilliant. So went along. I think he wrestled Dave Mastiff, and that was like the match I remembered specifically because it was like a guy of his size shouldn't be able to do that stuff. That was friggin' awesome. That completely like drew me in. A guy like Dave Mastiff doing that kind of thing. So that was my first interaction with them in general, just as a company. And a couple of our guys at the time, or a few of our trainees, like had sort of already like relationships with NGW, whether it was just helping out on merch or being ringside assistants and stuff. So like sometimes you'd see on NGW shows like just trainees and stuff in like just green t-shirts, and they'd help. Sometimes they'd be involved in spots, or sometimes it would just be a case of making sure the barriers were there for health and safety purposes. But so that was my first interaction with them, was as I guess a fan really, or just a very, 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 very new person inside the business within like a week or two. But my first booking with them was it was in Keighley. It was basically what they would refer to as a house show, because they did TV tapings, they did all sorts. So it was basically a house show, which was great.
I went to that show. I was trying to remember I know I've seen them locally. I just couldn't for my life bloody remember where it was. It was Keighley. That's it. Sorry, apologies to Keighley. Yeah, sorry, dude. I've been bugging.
So that was my first one, and I think from talking to Rich Dunn, who I don't know if he still does, but at that point was doing the day-to-day running of it and doing a lot of the booking and things. Like they kind of wanted me to come in and like try a smaller show first, because obviously a lot of their big shows like Hull City Hall, and other various massive venues. They film for at the time Challenge TV. They were doing stuff which is a network, and they were doing stuff for Maiden. So like when I lived in Leeds, and I'm sure they're the same things in Harlan sort of areas up north, there was like local syndicated television channels, and ours was made in Leeds, and then there was another one. Guess it was called Made in Hull or something like that, but it was just certain shows for that region, and they were filming for that particular brand of networks as well. So they wanted people to come in that kind of had a decent idea of what they were doing, particularly as a referee or wrestler. Did that Keithley show. They liked me. So my second show was at Hull City Hall in front of, I don't know, 2,000 people for TV. So then that's something I've never done before. So then I'm looking around. I'm like, okay, there's a camera there. So even though I'd normally stand over here, there's a camera there. So I have to be over here. But that guy's going to do this move here, or she's going to do this move here. So now you're not only thinking about where the cameras are, you're having to think about where the talent is, and you have to think about doing what you're doing as well. Remember what you're doing. So it does add a complete different element of and because it's for TV, you have to keep to time. So you have to make sure that whoever's in the ring with you, you have to be like, right, we've got 6 left, 7 left, go home, whatever. You have to be completely on the ball. And you know, that was a great learning curve for me to kind of pick up on that and learn more about that, because if it wasn't for doing that with an NGW, I would never have had the opportunity to do stuff with the short-lived WCPW or WPCW. I can't remember the name of the company now.
WCPW.
There you go. So that again, it's just like it just is it's a natural flow of progression there. But NGW was from the outside and even from the inside, so much happens. They've got the training schools. They have special seminars that people come in. Then they've got people like Nathan and Matt that have been there for literally the start of their own trainee kind of journey, and they're now trainers there, and you know, which is great. It's almost like in a football term where you've got like youth team players, and then they sign for the team that they've been training with, and then they play the whole career there, and then they stay as coaches afterwards, or player coaches, or whatever you like. So it just kind of, it keeps that embodiment of the company around from day dot, and the reason why NGW is what it is. And Matt and Nathan, and Rampage as well. I don't know if he still does stuff with them. I'm a bit out of the loop, obviously, but obviously I know he signed to NXT UK, but you know, people like that have been there such a long time. And forgive me if I've forgotten any names of people that I've out of the loop, but those, you know, without those guys, it doesn't.
I think they were the main three, definitely Rampage, Nathan, and Matt. I would class as the top three.
But those three cover so much, and they cover so much different styles and knowledge and ability. So it's, you know, you're not going to find a better trio of talent to work with, or to teach the next lot coming through, I think. So
yeah,
it's a win-win. So the whole NGW experience, it was great. And also NGW allowed me to do something that I never thought in a million years I'd ever have the opportunity to do, and that's referee on the camps. So when I was super little, me, my brother, and my dad would go to Butlins all the time in Bognor, and I got to referee in the tent at Bognor Regis, and that was like, for me, it's crazy, because I remember watching a Scotty 2 Hotty tribute act in that tent as like a 10, 11, 12-year-old, and I was like, that was like peak WWE, WWF kind of at the time. And my dad obviously was like, okay, the wrestling's on, Craig will want to watch that. And my brother didn't really mind, but my dad was very much like, okay, fine, Craig's going to watch the wrestling. I'll just sort of have a drink and just, you know, whatever. So then years later, be the referee in a match or matches, and do a couple of 2 or 3 of them runs, them camp show runs, was that was really cool. I really, really enjoyed that. So that to me was more fun than the TV, because of what it meant to me personally, than what it meant like from a thing. The fact that I got to go and do that, where I've been on holiday and I'm now being paid to be there and to stay there and to do that, was really cool. So that was a lot of fun. So a lot of thanks to NGW for that. Yeah, that was cool.
obviously a lot of the wrestlers and stuff love the camp scenes. They credit it for being like the wrestler that they are. They learn so much working the camp scenes because of it's just a different environment. Is that similar for a referee, or is it just same old as far as you're concerned?
It was
Or was a different approach to it?
It was different. I liked the so personally for me, I liked being there as what it meant to me personally, but I didn't like refereeing them because it was a whole different thing. Because we NGW at one point tried to implement yellow cards and red cards, and it was like because I wouldn't do them all the time, these camp shows. So for whenever I was doing them, it was like I had to change my whole mindset of what it was like to referee. So for me, I could show up, referee you versus the cat, whoever's just coming to the shot there, the dog, whatever. I could ref you two, fine, like not a problem. But then when you start implementing like brand new things, that it's like, oh wow, okay, my autopilot mode doesn't tell me to give you a yellow card. It got easier, like anything, the more you do it, but it was a bit odd. For me, it wasn't something that I particularly like gravitated to. And I have no idea if any of the talent liked it, didn't like it. But what did work for it, and even though I might not have enjoyed it as much, is that even if you're a non-wrestling fan, and you've kind of gone along to this show because it's at a Butlins, most people know about football and know football, so nearly everybody will understand the concept of a yellow card and then a red card. So I guess that's one way of, and because again you're having people that are coming there that are not possibly wrestling fans, they're there because they're there with the family. You need to kind of bring them in a different way. So even the whole way the match would be structured would be not completely different, but it would be a different way of doing it for the camps. But that's why I think you rightly say there that people credited the camps with how to work different ways in front of different people, because it's easy. I say it's easy. It's easier to work in front of an NGW crowd at Hull City Hall because they're all wrestling fans. They've all paid 12 quid to be there, whatever. They all want to watch wrestling. Everyone at Butlins in Bognor or various other campsites around the country, they don't necessarily want to. They're there because they want to have fun. That's their holiday.
Yeah.
But maybe this is their first ever wrestling show. So
and it's free.
And it effectively, yeah, obviously they paid to be in the camp, but they haven't paid to go to the physical show. So theoretically, yes, the show is free in the scheme of they've not paid to go and watch a wrestling match. They can walk out, they can come in, they can go whenever they want. So you do have to really kind of not strip it back, but spoon feed them a little bit more.
It's more theatrics. It's got to be a bit more good guy, bad guy, very clear cut good guy, bad guy.
You can't have
know who they're cheering.
Yeah,
know who they're booing.
You can't have a tweener or a cool bad guy that kind of gets cheered, but really shouldn't be. Like I like prime example, like an Adam Cole who is a heel, but everybody loves. And you couldn't have that kind of a persona or a gimmick at a camp show because it would be just too confusing. Nobody would understand whether you're supposed to be cheering him or booing him. So you're absolutely spot on. You have to have, here's your nice guys, here's your horrible guys or girls, and there you go. Spoon feed
cheer them, boo them.
100%. 100%.
That's but I can't remember who said it again, but they sort of said as well that it kind of takes the pressure off a little bit in the sense it's heightened because you've got to tell the story so much. You've got to spoon feed them the story because you say they're not wrestling fans. But if you make a mistake, they're not going to get on your back over it. You're never going to hear a "you fucked up" chanting Butlins.
No, you're not, and that's actually a really good point. You're not going to hear any of that. Like, it might kind of kill the crowd for a second. They might all go like, "Oh my god!" Like, because they're not clued up to it. They might. Some people will just, again, because you're going to have very casual, maybe non-wrestling fans there. You will get the stuff where it's like, "Oh, this is fake," and this isn't real, which is right. Like when you go to again, we'll use the example of a Hull City Hall or a like an O2 Arena or whatever. People are going there. They know what wrestling is. You don't need to kind of play that whole kind of like, they know what's going on. They know the crack. Like, people come in there. The kids might think it's real. The adults will be like, nah, this is a load of rubbish. Well, I see. He knows how to fall safely there. So then when something happens where it's like, oh my God, like, I think it draws those people in a little bit more where they're like, oh, is he hurt? And then when he's selling in the ring or she's selling in the ring, it's like, oh, okay, now I'm with this guy or girl, like I'm behind them a bit more because I feel like they need me a bit more, and then you start to kind of, then you bring on this emotion a little bit more. But that's what I mean, it's hard if you can go to a camp show and you can get a crowd behind you who don't know you, or you get a crowd to hate. It's easier to get a crowd to hate you than it is to get a crowd to cheer you. Far easier. So if you're a babyface and you go out there and you get them to cheer you, and afterwards you go to the merchandise stand and they're buying T-shirts and they want a picture with you, then phenomenal. 100%. That's why it's hard, and that's why you'll always hear people of a certain generation of wrestlers from this country when they credit how much the camps did for them in regards to experience. Like all-star wrestling, like Brian Dixon and that kind of era. That's why people have so much love and respect for that kind of era, because it taught them, I imagine, and I wasn't there, but from the stories that they say, you imagine how much they learned and how much they understood, they got taught by doing that in front of people that, like I say, don't necessarily are wrestling fans.
That's it. I mean, I've not heard a bad word. I've had various guests on who have worked for All Stars. Obviously, Nathan, the Belgian Bull, Laurie, a few others. And they just sort of say it's an amazing experience. Obviously, everybody knows Brian Danielson came through, the campsites in England when he was learning the craft kind of thing. So that speaks volumes. It's not just a certain type of wrestler. I mean, obviously, Dean Allmark tweeted something a couple of months ago now, sort of praising the campsites and the scenes. So yeah, I just think it's an awesome way, and I just don't get the mentality sometimes when people besmirch it or think it, belittle it, kind of thing. It seems really weird to me, because everything that I've heard is nothing but positive.
For sure. I don't any, like I said, even for me, it was a different experience with the card element, if you like.
Yeah.
But for me, it was still something new. So, for example, I showed up at another company and they said, "Oh, Craig, we're gonna try yellow and red cards. How do you feel about that?" I'd be like, "Well, actually, I've done a bit of that, so I can kind of, what time, how do you want this to be done?" So yeah, that's something that I guess it's an experience, but you can only think of it as a positive experience.
I could see that working though. I remember seeing a picture of you on Facebook now with like a red card at some point. I couldn't place it at the time. I couldn't quite make any sense of it. I was like, why the hell has the ref got a red card?
I don't know if maybe I was joking. I don't know if it might have been a joke then, but I don't know if I ever gave anybody a red card, but I think
it might be a yellow card there. It was one of the cards.
It was definitely, I definitely had to book some wrestlers, which again, it makes me giggle because it's so like, this is football, this is wrestling, and it is just trying to kind of make it relevant to non wrestling fans. But we've gone through it, so we digress, but it is what it is.
Part of me actually loves that idea though, because you just imagine just the heat. It would be it's a genius way of getting the audience, participating and just getting.
Well, I tell you what it can do.
Booking or the bad guy.
Well, booking a babyface is interesting because you got. I mean, I don't. We get into the gripes bit, but if you've got a heel tag team and they're beating down the babyface and they've isolated the babyface, and then the heel comes in and it's like, turn around, no heel, you get out of the ring. No, babyface comes in. I turn around, hey, you shouldn't be in the ring. Yellow card, off you go. And it's like, oh my god, it's like, but the one thing that I always got told, then, it's like the timing had to be so key, because with the yellow and red card situation, the heat could easily end up on me, which is completely pointless. What is the point in hating me? It's 0 point in hating me, because I am not winning or losing. I'm just the referee. I'm not the guy you need to boo. I'm not the guy you need to cheer. So it was, like I say, for me, that's why I was like, if I'm booking baby faces, like, I don't know if I like that idea. Booking heels, cool, because like, if anything, if you are going to push a ref to a certain area, then you push a ref towards the good side. But again, that's why
this is the guy that feuded with Ligero.
but that's with wrestling fans. But that's with wrestling fans.
Oh, no, that's what I mean, though.
That's
in
the
the context.
In
Yeah, not so
context.
much in the holiday scenes, but I could see it working in like an actual promotion kind of thing, you know, where you can kind of use it to build a ref character, you know, very much like you did with the the evil legs.
Well, I know we talked about that and stuff. And there's loads of other stuff we can talk about. But for me, it was that for me, it was a lot of Danny Davis and Bill Alfonso kind of stuff. That was what I was trying to do with leagues in regards to how I was. And obviously a bit of me as well, just being a dickhead. So, which I was really good at. So, you know.
But yeah, so it's just different. I like different sometimes. I like it when promotions try new things. And I think it could. I'll probably get shut on the comments or wherever for this, but if an actual promotion did try it but they used it to get a referee over or to build a bit of a character for a referee, I just think it's a good idea. I like it when wrestling promotions do the old school way of rounds, timed rounds and stuff like that. It's just a little bit different. It makes it stand out.
Different isn't necessarily bad. Different isn't necessarily good. It is sometimes you have to throw shit at the wall and see what sticks, right? Exactly. And some you could do the same match in London, and you can do the same match in Liverpool, and the same match in Hull, and the same match in Newcastle, and one town might shit on it, and the rest might go, "Fucking hell, that was amazing. Let's do that again." So I think you've got to be open-minded, but you've got to be aware that people have come to watch wrestling, and if you start throwing that stuff that they're not completely okay with, then they might not come back, and that's just
I'd do it for like one match. I'd have a certain match stipulation where like one match had the card set up just to test.
No, for sure. I don't see that being an issue to really like at all. If you had, it's like, for example, if you had 8 matches on a show and they were all singles matches, I mean, that just gets a bit repetitive, doesn't it? Like, how many times can you do the same sort of match 8 times? Like, if you've got 6 matches and you've got a ladies match, a tag match, maybe you've got a couple of singles matches, but one of them has a manager. Maybe you've got a 4-way. Maybe you've got or maybe a female tag males. So you can have a couple of the same similar matches, but that's the beauty of wrestling. It's like everyone likes a little bit of everything. Someone might like a hardcore match. Someone might like a women's match. Someone might like what does Big E say on Raw?
Big men slapping meat.
Big men slapping me, like him and Bobby and what he's gonna do with Drew and stuff. It's big men slapping me, man. But then other people will love Will Ospreay versus Ricochet. Do you know what I mean? That's what you have. So if you did have a match on a show which had rounds, great, because some people will go, "This is the heritage of British wrestling. This needs to be on every show," and others will just sit there and go, "This is crap. I'm going for a wee," and that's like, I remember going to many WWE shows back years ago, and whenever the women would come out, it was terrifying how many people stood up and walked off and went to go get a drink, go get some food, because nobody gave a crap. And now the women's matches are probably the most watched, or some of the most watched. So it is just about what, like I said, you throw against the wall. Some of it will stick, some of it won't. Some people will like it, some people won't. Exactly. So, but to have everything as the same there's so much variety in wrestling. There's so much. It's too silly and too short-sighted to kind of go, right, here's 8 matches or 6 matches. Here they're all singles matches, all men's matches, not one woman in sight. Go, like, okay.
I totally agree. Which is why, kind of sidebar, what I enjoy AEW slightly more than other promotions at the minute, because I think it's got a wider variety to it. Just throwing that out there for anyone listening that wants to disagree with me. So talking of sig breaks, again, another sidebar. That's when I used to go watch Tidal. Dan Evans matches were always my sig break or my toilet break. So I'll just mention that. Dan Evans.
Fair enough.
It was one. Yeah, it was Dan, wasn't it? I don't know why. Something didn't click, and then he started using Cochise by Audio Slave as his entrance theme, and I was devastated because for years I wanted somebody to use that as the song, as their entrance theme. And then I heard it, and I was like, no, not Dan. We'll have to stay now and listen to it. So yeah, random fact for you. That was my secret. But like I said, you want the variety. Yeah, every wrestling show should be different. It should have like a buffet of options of styles.
Yeah, buffet's a good word, actually. Yeah, definitely buffet. Good variety of options.
A tapas.
Tapas.
So yeah. Back to you though. I mean, obviously, I'm trying not to. I should have rewatched the part one before doing this, because I don't want to go over stuff that we talked about before. But so I want to know, much more. Any stories you've got to tell?
Well, WCPW was one we touched on earlier. That was we haven't really talked about that. If you want, if we can talk about that.
Yes, what culture?
That was what culture? That's to its a smaller version. So what culture was an interesting one, because again, it was very much northern-based company, and it was literally from absolutely nothing, and then it went into like a warehouse in Newcastle in front of like 20 people in like the middle of the day. It was like Matt from Botchamania him and like 20 or 30 of his friends went to like the first few matches, and it was just in a warehouse in Newcastle, and that's where they filmed the first few. And then after that, I don't know how it happened or what happened, but the bosses of What Culture at the time just went, here's a ton of money, let's make this company what it was. And for I don't know, maybe a year, maybe 18 months, 2 years, it was the absolute top place to be and the top place to work, because they already had a great reach on YouTube. What Culture? They already had that fantastic reach of this is King Ross, Jack the Jobber, Matt Pacitti. Oh, I'm trying to remember some of the others. So they already had like this core of characters within themselves just on their YouTube pages. And then you start going, well, we're going to be wrestlers. Like Matt Pacitti was the general manager, and there's this phenomenal match where it was actually Joseph Connors, who was the champion, versus Martin Kirby, and they'd all given out glow sticks because Kirby's entrance was phenomenal, and Kirby was the challenger, and there were these glow sticks, and Pacitti came out and he screwed Kirby, turned heel, everyone hated him. And then a couple of people started throwing the glow sticks at Pacitti, who was just stood on the apron. And before you know it, hundreds of these glow sticks were thrown at him. And I'm pretty sure it's probably on YouTube somewhere. I don't know. Maybe they've tried to take it down. I don't know. It could still be on their official YouTube page, possibly. But it's one of the most iconic kind of things that kind of bubble brought that era of What Culture Wrestling together as a company. I forget the guy that booked me now. It was I know Steve Linsky was kind of like, I don't know, senior ref or head ref, or so he had part to deal with that. But I think it was Dan Richardson was the guy that kind of did most of the booking with the British talent. He got in touch with me and said, like, it's going to be you, Joel Allen, like Sean McLaughlin from ICW is doing it as well. So like I felt in like really esteemed company, because these guys are coming from PCW at the time when Joel was doing a lot of that, like Preston City Wrestling, that was obviously massive at the time. A lot of Ring of Honor guys were going there, and he was doing Southside, which was doing a hell of a lot of good big numbers. Sean obviously from ICW, so you had like a lot of. So I felt quite like I was in like really good company. So instantly, even before I knew what match I was doing, you look around what referees are there, and you're like, okay, you're pretty big from there. You're pretty big from there. I'm here now too. This is really cool. So instantly you feel like you're in good company. The first, so I say the first match I ref. Technically, it was the second match I ref. The first match I ref was effectively a squash. It was Primate, Jason Prime, who I absolutely fucking loves. Such a nice bloke. And he was in like, I think it was him versus like 3 people, and it was a handicap match, but he annihilated them. It was on purpose to build up the Primate to make him the monster that he was, and but that was like a KO finish. So there wasn't really a finish for me. All I was told to go in there was bring the bell after a few minutes. But but that was on the pre-show as well. On the main show, I was given, I think, only one. I remember the one match. If I was given another one, I can't remember, which is bad. But I was given one match, and it was Doug Williams versus Cody Rhodes. So I was like, okay, that seems quite nice. I'll look forward to that one. And yeah, they were obviously I had the privilege of refereeing Doug Williams a few times. Global Force that we talked about earlier, that show as well. So which was nice. But refereeing Cody Rhodes was pretty cool. He'd only been released from WWE for a little bit, so he was still doing like the whole cartwheel and then the whole Stardust thing, and everyone was popping for that because like it's like, oh, this is an inside joke, and everyone was getting a little bit giddy and a little bit excited about all that kind of stuff. So, but he was great. He was super nice. Always dressed in a suit. He was maybe the only other guy I'd always seen in a suit was Nathan Cruz. So it kind of showed you like what kind of how like the way that was kind of the attitude and the how those two guys did that. But excuse me. So Cody was super lovely, super nice. But yeah, the other thing from that show was that you had a 3-man commentary booth. One of the guy was a guy called Alex Shane, who's done wrestled and then was
World of Sport and stuff.
Yeah, he did. Yes, that's true. Yeah. He did commentate on World of Sport, and he did a lot of stuff with NGW as well. Was a sort of behind the scenes and commentary as well. But he did. It was a 3-man booth. It was him, Jim Cornette, and Jim Ross. So I have it somewhere my sort of hard drive that I'm not sure if I can put on social media because I'll probably get in trouble or copyrighted. But I have a match where I've ref Cody Rhodes and Doug Williams with JR and Jim Cornette on commentary. So that for me is like, I must admit, after I came off that, I was like, if it ended now, I'd be happy. Yeah, kind of like it was, you know, if for any reason it didn't go well after this, then I'm like, okay, this is okay. Awesome. I'm quite happy with that one. So it still makes me smile thinking about it now. So I was quite happy. The stop me if I'm going on, but the other thing that I had someone I had an interaction with, which I hold my hands up and say I didn't really know much about this guy and was a bit like, oh, he's a bit whatever, was Bret Hart. And so he was on that show, and I was also on a show with Bret probably like the year before with a company that I can't even remember now, but it was one of them. They chucked a bunch of money at it. It was a really big show. And he was on there. He did a speaking thing before the show. So if you paid an extra 10 quid, you sit in the bleachers, and Bret was in the ring. And I think Rob Maltman did a Q&A with him and did a bit of a chat with him. And then I think Bret did something in the show. But anyway, fast forward to this What Culture show. I was very lucky to do a bunch of What Culture shows and then do a bit of a tour around the country with them. And I did stuff in Bedford down here at a nice rink down south, which was really cool, which was like 2 minutes from my dad's house, which was really fun. And a bunch of other stuff in Nottingham and up north in Newcastle and things like that. So lots of really cool venues for them. But I did find myself for literally 5 minutes. It was just me, Blade, his son, and Bret Hart just sat in this locker room. And I said, oh, sir, I was on the show with you this time last year doing this. And he was like, yeah, man, that guy was a piece of shit. And he was just, and I was like, yeah, it wasn't the best, was it? And it was just this really weird moment where like, he's up here and I'm here, but it's just a very normal conversation. And it was just, I must admit, I left there. I was like, "You're really nice," and like, I don't know what people perceived Bret Hart to be. Maybe at one point it was this guy that would just stand in the ring and do a promo, and maybe people weren't overly enthused by that, and people had this. I said, I held my hands up. I was one of them. I was like, "Okay, Bret Hart's back again." Like, okay, sure, but that's just what you see on telly, and like, but he was lovely, and we had a nice chat for a few minutes, and then he said bye and thank you, and he did his thing, and then he went, and that was it. And it was like, cool, bye. It was like two old mates and just chatting. It was bizarre, mate. A lot of my stories in wrestling, I look back now and think that actually happened to me, and
That's awesome though. That is totally like that's what they were like. The Nick Aldis communicating with via email, sorting out referee and global, dealing with that. Obviously, you've had a shared moment with Bret Hart. It's just that's it, man. Just you hung up the stripes early as well, dude. But I think you had like a 20-year career in the space of like several years or something. But you've got a lot in.
Well,
You've got a lot in and met a lot of people.
I did. I was very blessed in the way I think I hit the ground running. Once I kind of did a few shows, I think people were like, "Okay, Craig's okay. Like, give him a chance on this show." And then you show up, you do well, and people then go, "Okay, Craig did well on this show. Let's." And that's just word of mouth. It is really word of mouth. Promoters will talk to each other. Talent obviously all talks to each other. Refs talk to each other. Oh, I can't do this show. Oh, Craig's here. Craig's gonna. But it's also travel. Like, Craig lives in Leeds. Who else lives in Leeds? Rampage, Ligero, Kirby. They're everywhere. Everywhere. So it's like, oh, well, if they're there and Craig's there, let's just bring them all down together. So again, I'm saying it's right place, right time. That does have something to do with it, 100%. But you still have to then show up and do your business. You can't then show up and be shit, because then they'll be like, I know Craig lives in Leeds, but we're not going to book him because he was crap and he screwed this finish up, or he pissed off this person. So we're not going to bring him back. So you still have to show up and do your thing. But I was very lucky in location. I just happened to be around some of the best wrestlers in the country at the time, and still to this day. So it did help for sure to start me off on 100%.
It got your foot in the door, but then you kicked it in with the other foot by, you say, just doing what you're doing, but doing it really well. But yeah, I think What Culture was kicking about. I'm still intrigued by this. I never actually got to ever go to a What Culture show, which is one of my pet drives at the time. But so you'd always hear about like Rey Mysterio was, wrestled for them. I mean, Alberto Del Rio, I think Phoenix was there as well. And
Matt Riddle did one. In fact, he wrestled. I think he wrestled Cody Rhodes actually in the main event. That was one of the London ones. Because again, when I moved back down south, they were like, okay, whenever he came down south, we'll book you because you're there. So that was helpful. And there's actually a GIF still. That's reminded me. There's a GIF somewhere still of Mustache Mountain versus, oh god, I can't remember who they wrestled, but there's a GIF of Tyler Bate and Trent Seven. Basically, they body slam one person, then he go down. The feed in next one body slam, and it was going round and round and round and round, and then Tyler just stopped and just slowly pointed at me in the corner, and I was like, no, 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 no. And he walks over to me, and he goes to pick me up, and everyone's going, everyone's going fucking mental, like, yes, body slam the ref. And then the heel, like, again, I wish I remember who they were. They cut them off, and then they got so much heat for not body slamming me. So that was just fucking crazy, man. Like, that's just another small, very, very small snippet for me, which I always remember, which they'll never remember. But for me, it was pretty cool. That was a fun moment. But again, I talked about some of the matches I ref for What Culture, but one of the coolest moments for me in What Culture wasn't even a match I refed. It was a match I had to come down as a ref, but act like a spot. It was Kurt Angle versus Cody Rhodes, and there was a spot where we had to. I know, fucking mad, isn't it? Right. So like, I had. I had to. In fact, I was asked to take Kurt to Gorilla to go to Gorilla, so I took him there, and I was like, "Here you go." And it was a very small interaction. And I went. He went, "Thank you." I went, "Good." He said, "No problem, sir. Good luck. Be safe." And he went, "Thank you very much." And it was just this like really very very quick, very very nice. Like it doesn't matter. Even if it was someone that's never wrestled in their lives, or like it was Kurt Angle or Jeff Jarrett, I'll always say good luck and be safe, because it's just nobody wants anything bad to happen out there. And I think for the most part, nobody ever really turned around and went, "I'm Kurt Angle," or I'm X, Y, and Z. Like, why are you telling me to be safe? I'm not gonna, because everybody knew it.
Yeah.
What that meant, they knew it wasn't an insulting comment. They knew it was a thing that everybody said to each other, because it was like, accidents happen, and we don't want an accident. We want everything to go fine. So Cody had to pretend to be her. He was selling on the outside, so I had to go down and so I had a spot in a Kurt Angle Cody Rhodes pay-per-view main event bit, which that was again, it was just a small spot. I had to go down and and look after Cody for 2 minutes, and then they got back in and tore the house down and did their business. But that was just before Kurt went back to WWE for that final that final run before he went to the Hall of Fame. So to get to meet him and work that close to actually refereeing a Kurt Angle match. If I had a ref Kurt Angle match, I'd have been like, I'm literally retiring now, and there's no point in even bothering doing anything more. Like, he was my like idol as a kid as well. He was like my guy. Like, I love Kurt Angle. So like, I was like, yeah, this doesn't get any better than the meeting Kurt Angle and sort of having a chat with him very briefly about bits and pieces. So yeah, that was cool.
Dude, that's awesome. Yeah, again, just another example of like backs up my statement of you literally you've had like a 20-year career in the space of several years or something crazy like that, man. So obviously with What Culture, I don't know what happened. What Culture to me sounds, I don't know, it might be just before your time, or if you ever heard of them or remember them, but 1PW.
Yeah, before. Yeah, no, before I'd heard about them and how big they were and how much they did, but no, I couldn't sit here and tell you anything really about them apart from I knew they did really, really well for the time they were around, but that was
they
it.
Did, but then they kind of splashed. Yeah, they splurged the cash. I think they hit the ground running and spent far too much money far too quick, and then eventually just kind of closed the doors a couple of years later, kind of thing. And it just sounds like. I know What Culture is huge on, they've got like over 2 million subscribers on YouTube and stuff like that. So I'm sure the money's not an issue, but it probably seems like, they weren't making as much money as they expected and just decided to close the doors kind of thing. It's just.
Yeah, I really, honestly, Matt, I honestly couldn't, maybe at the time I would, I'm sure that I would, if this conversation was like 5 or 6 years ago, I could have gone, yeah, this happened or whatever, but I honestly couldn't tell you, mate. Obviously,
no, I'm not expecting an answer. It's just speculation on my part. It's just more of a comparison with the 1PW thing. Like I sort of said, it's like the flame burnt really bright, but it burnt out very quickly, kind of thing, because it was just like so fucking awesome.
It did, but I think if you look back on it, yes, it did. It burnt very, very, very bright for again, I think maybe 18 months, 2 years. Really hot, but I think as much as it sucked that it went under and or the financial backing stopped or for whatever reason, everyone that was like on that hot run did actually keep kicking on and did go and do good things. Joe Connors, who was the champion for a long time, is in WWE, NXT UK. Will Ospreay, well, I don't even have to explain. One of the matches he had was the Ricochet match where the ropes broke. In that match, at the time, I remember again another random story. I was sitting right at the top. A lot of the talent that if you weren't in a match or ref in a match, you would just go and sit at the back, and you'd go all the way up the top of these stairs. And I remember when it happened, thinking, "Fuck, what do I do?" And so I ran. I don't know why. I just thought, well, I'm a ref. I guess I'll have to help. Like, or should I help? Should we leave it? Yeah, so I ran down. Joel Allen was down there pretty quick. I think Linsky got down there pretty quick. Like, it was just as referees, I think it was just that go-to thing of we're going to go down there and see if we can fix this. I don't even remember what happened. I don't know if they continued with 2 ropes. I think they probably did finish with 2 ropes. They were that bloody good, the pair of them. But anyway, my point is that everybody that was hot off that run ended up in either ITV World of Sport or NXT UK. So it sucks, but there was definitely that elevation of talent that then went on, and that's for referees as well. My timing was unfortunate, but there was others that did kick on and worked for one or some of them worked for both companies, because obviously after the ITV thing went awry, then they went over to NXT UK. So yeah, no, it was it like I said, it sucked, but a lot of people got a lot out of the push. So
it was a good experience. You know, they got what they needed from it, kind of thing, and it helped them to get to the next level. So it's only a good thing.
Yeah, and you're right. And the purpose of that was, yes, they built their own stars, and there were people that hadn't maybe had much nationwide exposure, if you like, which what culture gave them literally nationwide exposure. It wasn't just you're in this town or this city. You're on YouTube, like you said, that 2 million people following them. So it's like, oh, I've never really watched anything outside WWE. Now they have this company. Oh wow, look at all these wrestlers. Let's follow them around the country. So
but you recognise the names as well. Like so it's like what 1PW did back in the day. You know, you'd pay interest to the show because Ray was on it, or Kurt Angle was on it, or Cody Rhodes was on it. But then you would see Joseph Collins, and you'd be like, okay, that guy's fucking awesome. You know, we like this guy. I was watching it for this guy, but I like this guy now, so I'll keep watching him as well. And it's just imports done properly by the sounds of it.
Yeah, the for the most, I mean, sometimes they would work each other. Like there was a Del Rio versus Angle match. Obviously, so you'd have like some of the guys work each other, which is fine. But obviously, for me, it worked better when you had an English or a British-based talent working with someone from abroad. That to me made more sense, because then people want to go, oh, I really want to watch Kurt Angle. Oh look, he's working I don't know, Nathan Cruz argument. I don't know that never happened, but that would have been a freaking cool match. The Global Force thing's the prime example. Well, look, Jeff Jarrett's here. Oh yeah, I've heard of Nathan Cruz, but I've never seen him wrestle. Oh great, that was really good. Nathan Cruz is a really good wrestler. So yeah, like you say, here's your talent, here's your top tier, but then you don't realize that there's actually other guys that are just as good, but you've just never seen them before. So it's more eyes on the product. So
definitely. So
yeah,
but yeah, no, that's. I will have to go back and check out some of this, the What Culture. I've never actually really watched any of it. Obviously know about it, but yeah, I never really ventured into watching it. So you know, then it'll get me watching it now as well. So you know, I'm unlocked on my own advertising, so I'll watch it. So, but dude, we have hit the hour mark already. So
it's gone so fast.
I know, mate. So it's like, you know, there could be a part 3 coming up at some point. I'm sure.
That's what I mean. You could do this with every single person you've interviewed. Like that, everyone would have more stories and more insight to stuff. So it's there's a never ending amount of stuff that people could talk about. So
I suppose it's just if you feel comfortable. You know, it's like like I said, this has flown by for me, and it did the first time around as well. I enjoy talking. You know, you get me talking about wrestling. But I know some people talk about it, but it's still a job to them. So sometimes they'll be very excitable about it, but then other times you can sort of tell where it's just like, oh, it's wrestling. I'm going to talk about it because obviously I've got to kind of. But yeah, sometimes it's a bit tricky. But yeah, dude, as always, first time was awesome. This time was awesome.
Thank you very much.
We'll make a trilogy of it, I'm sure, at some point.
Trilogy.
And,
as long as it comes off like the first original Star Wars films and not the 3 new ones, like, you know, as long as people rank it in that, then we're fine. But as long as it's not ranked in the new ones,
and you never know, we might break the trilogy rule, and the third one might be the best one out of all of them. I don't think that's ever happened.
Who knows? That doesn't happen, does it? The third film's I don't know any saga of films where the third one is Maybe Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings.
Damn it! I watched one the other day, and I was thinking about it. I was like, you know what? That actually breaks the trilogy rule. And I can't remember what the bloody hell it was. But normally, it's weird enough when the second one does it. But yeah, I was watching. Oh, bollocks! It's going to piss me off now again. But yeah, apologies. I digress. And get me talking about films now as well. It's something else that just I could sit here and talk about for ages. But yes, we will do the trilogy at some point, and we'll make sure it's not a Scream 3 or a
Scream 3.
Blade Trinity.
Sounds good.